this is my testimony about how I became Catholic. I used to be Protestant. I grew up in a Southern Baptist / Calvinist / Reformed family. And I read my Bible at home and I prayed and I went to church every week. I definitely had a relationship with God. But I felt like my relationship with him was mostly at home. I never really encountered him at church. To me, church felt more like a place where we sang about Jesus and read the Bible and talked about the Bible, and I got free snacks. But I felt like my relationship with Jesus was for home and didn't have anything to do with the church. I also didn't know any Catholics growing up, and I didn't know what they believed. So Protestants told me that Catholics have to get saved by their works and that they have to do a bunch of chores like scrubbing the floors and giving to the poor if they want to work in their salvation. That was the day that I thought growing up. And then in 2019, our family joined this 4-H group. If you don't know what 4-H is, it's like a youth development program. And it turns out all the families in that group were Catholic. Not only Catholic, but they went to St. Patrick's. They were like, Catholics. And so I really got to know these families, and I did all kinds of activities with them outside of 4-H. And I realized, Catholics are pretty fun, and they're not fearfully trying to earn their way to heaven. They actually love Jesus a lot. So then my mom started getting into all these debates with the Catholics about theology, and they gave her a stack of books. And so I was very curious, and maybe prompted by the Holy Spirit, I read through this little kid's catechism that had cartoons and everything. I was expecting to find all kinds of things I could laugh at. But there wasn't really anything in there to laugh at. It was all very reasonable and just gospel-centered. So I was like, okay. And then at this time, my parents were very challenged by these Catholic arguments, and they did some research of their own. And when our Catholic friends invited us to go to Mass, we decided we would go at St. Patrick's. And this was 2020 when our regular church was shut down for COVID. I thought it'd be a one-time thing, but God ended up having other plans. So the Mass is very, very different compared to what I was used to at a Protestant church. If you've never been to a Baptist church, it's usually in a big minimalist room, maybe with a decorative cross, and they have a worship band on stage, and a pastor will give a 30 to 45 minute sermon about a passage from the Bible, and there will usually be coffee and donuts and stuff, sometimes in the actual worship room. So when I went into St. Patrick's, it was kind of like stepping into the Middle Ages. I was a little it was very overwhelming, overstimulating, but even in all of that, not knowing what was going on, the beauty of the Mass, grew me. The liturgy felt so rich and ancient and continuous, it was from the Christians of the past. And the reverence was something that I had never experienced before. Everything was so focused on Jesus and Jesus alone, not the band, the pastor, or anything. So after that, we kept going to Mass every single week, and my parents ended up joining RCIA to continue their research. And so I went to ECD and started getting really involved in the Catholic community. But for a while, I still didn't know what the Catholic teachings were, the Eucharist or Mary or any of that. And then one day I picked up this book called Surprised by Truth by Patrick Madrid, and it's the testimonies of a lot of converts to the Catholic faith, talking about their reasons for joining. And when they explained everything so clearly, God just opened my heart to believe, wow, the Catholic Church is true. It is the one true church. And all their teaching are really biblically based. So when I discovered that the bread at Mass actually transforms into the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus, my paradigm shift kind of. I realized what all the reverence was about and why everyone actually thought that Jesus was there. That's why they were so respectful. I had no idea that Jesus could be so close to you, close enough to physically touch. That was never my experience as a Protestant. It always felt kind of far away, in heaven. So we decided to join the church with the Easter Vigil in 2021. God just gave me this hunger for the Eucharist. I watched all the people going up to receive communion, and I was just like so jealous. Like, how many of them like realize this amazing gift that they're receiving? Like, I was just like desperate. And so when it came to the Easter Vigil, I got confirmation and accepted into the church, and I got my first communion. And I'd like to say that there was this big wave of emotion or some kind of miracle, but I didn't really get that. I just felt kind of like calm, but the emotions didn't matter anyway because Jesus was still there, and it was amazing just to be able to spend time with him, to be so close to him. And since then, Jesus has encountered me so much more in the Eucharist. I've gone through, like, it hasn't been perfect, there's been dryness and stuff, but he's always been there for me, always been so close. And so now I go to Mass every Sunday, and not to get the snacks or the donuts, but I go for Jesus. Try to. Next Sunday, try to go to Mass not for your friends or for the donuts or the coffee or because your parents are making you go, but go to Mass and open yourself to Jesus. You don't have to do anything or feel anything in particular. Just sit with him and soak in his presence. He wants to be with you really bad.